Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education on May 2nd, 2022. Yes, it's May. Congratulations, we're this far into the year. At 7:03 p.m. If I can, let me get started with a roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mr. De Vera?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
All right, with a roll call, now let us please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and board, as a reminder, please make sure your cell phones are set to off and off of the table. And crowd, if you have phones, please on silent. Thank you. And next up now, we have an approval for the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Larson. Well, I'm losing it already. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
And we have an approved agenda. And first up on that agenda are special recognition and presentations. The Round Lake Exchange Club 2022 Youth of the Year Award.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm going to introduce somebody who needs no introduction. She's been in front of the board before. This is award season, and she is taking awards home left and right. So this is Gisela Uribe. She won. She was a nomination for our Youth of the Year award. If you remember, when she was Youth of the Month, she did a number of different community service opportunities, one of which she taught a little boy from Peru how to speak English during the pandemic. She also, I think it was at the last meeting where she won the Silent Servant Award. One thing that you'll always know about Giselle is she is always smiling, and we love to smile around here at Panther High. So it's a great honor to award Gisela this Youth of the Year award, most deserving. And ladies and gentlemen, Gisela.
Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure once again to stand before you all and receive this very, just an amazing award. And I'm very, very happy to always be a Panther and continue to finish off, 2 more weeks and I'll be gone. But yeah, thank you all so much, and I'm very, very grateful.
Our next award is accepting, again, an Exchange Club award, accepting the Challenge of Excellence. And that goes to Josefina Cedeno Bustos. Oh, there she is. We got a packed house. I couldn't quite see her when I walked in. Accepting the Challenge of Excellence is awarded for somebody who has overcome significant obstacles and persevered and come out better on the other end. I heard Josefina's speech last Thursday at the Exchange Club, and there was not a dry eye in the room. She is most deserving of this award from the Exchange Club. She will tell her story, and it's a moving story, and you will see just why she is so deserving of this award.
Hi, my name is Josefina, and I just want to read about my life, and I'm a little nervous. I was scared for my life when I come to the United States. We paid Coyote to help us cross the border into America, and we were found by the police, who took us to a detention facility. And the police spoke with my mother, and they asked if we were dangerous. They looked up the case and realized that we were telling the truth about the kidnapping. Even with all these things I went through, I knew that coming to America would be a fresh start. I didn't know how much English when I come here, but I am most proud of being on the honor roll at freshman at Warren High School. My math teacher chose me for tutoring other students and helping them understand math we were learning. We took a picture of me and put it in the front of the office. They gave me a certificate, and my mother and my sister were able to come to the meeting where they talking about my success. It was hard for me to stand in front of others and speak about myself, but I was able to do it. I'm proud of this because I was able to help others during a hard time in my life. My mother was proud of me because I was able to focus at school and always work to have a good day. I didn't let the pain I wasn't consuming, and I worked hard to overcome my past. I came to the United States when I was 12 years old, following the abduction of my sister by the cartel. My family made a living by selling food in Mexico. My mother and I made food, and my older sister was working in a store. The day she was taken, I was selling food to a man who said me suspicious. My sister felt that something seemed wrong, so she ran to the bathroom to try to get away. A van drove up. Another man got out the van and followed her. They took her at a gunpoint. That night, my family received a ransom call telling us to pay 2 million pesos to get my sister back. We were forced to pay what we call 500,000 pesos or 24,000 US dollars. I think it is important to help other people because of everything that I have seen and been through. I want to become a police officer because I want to help my community to support others that may be going through hard times and to help families through their stress and pain. As a police officer, I will help people and make a difference to support this country. When we paid the ransom, we were faced with the Policía Federal in Mexico, who were working with the cartel. They assisted in taking my sister and the ransom money. I know not all the police are the same, and I plan to be different. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up, I think I looked at the agenda, the next is the Winter Guard, correct? Winter Guard, come on down. I'm going to turn the mic over just a bit to Jamie Dormandy for a true introduction of all the accomplishments for this incredible, incredible team. I love these guys. They're always smiling. They're fantastic. They're the heart and soul of the school. As you can see, very, very talented when it comes to participating in the many competitions that they participated over the winter, culminating in a third place finish in the Midwest Color Guard Championship. And we can't be more proud of these individuals and the coaching that came along with it. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. Jamie?
Hello. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here. I am so proud of all of these fine students and team members of the Varsity Winter Guard. We had an amazing whole year. The fall team was great. We won several top auxiliary awards then, and then coming into the winter season, I did not have expectations at all because we came back from COVID and had 2 seasons cut off, and we were pretty much starting from scratch. We only had 4 returning members from the varsity team from 2020, and they did awesome. Our show was entitled Music Can Change the World, and it was music from Beethoven, and it was just, I don't know, I can't even describe it. It was an amazing year. They won first place at their first competition, which was ridiculously awesome out of 10 groups, and super, super surprised. And then from there, it just snowballed. And then in their second competition, they won second place, but they scored so high that the judges made the decision to move them up into the elite class, the SA class. So we jumped classes in the middle of the season, which made for its own challenges because it's a whole different ballgame when you change classes, especially moving from the middle class to the upper class that we did. But they were up for the challenge and they worked so hard. We had a lot of practices. Our show was incredibly difficult, and they ended up third place in Class SA at the Midwest Color Guard Circuit Championships a few weeks ago. And, they beat a lot of teams that went on to go to nationals and whatnot the week after. So super, super proud of them. We have a lot of really great seniors on this team that led us through the pandemic, kept us going with Zoom classes and stuff just to get us through until we could meet again in person. And they were really hungry for an awesome season, and they're the product of hard work pays off. So thank you very much for having us here. And I love these guys, and I love our staff. Carl, who's one of our staff members today that could come, and he is an alumni of Round Lake, class of 2018, and he's gone on. He is now a member of the Cavaliers in the Drum and Bugle Corps for the summer. So they're a top 5 group in the world, and we are lucky enough to have a participant of that group here with us and teaching our kids. So thank you very much.
So I get the honor of the next recognition. So every year, the Illinois Directors of let me try that again. I had it even written down and practiced it, and apparently that's still. So every year, the Illinois Directors of Student Activities hold a conference, and the kickoff to that conference is an awards and recognition ceremony where they recognize advisors, club sponsors, and administrators who do a lot to help support the activities in their schools, in Illinois schools. Coming out of the pandemic, there was no doubt in my mind that Mike Berry deserved recognition for the, I wrote it down. I didn't hesitate to nominate Mike Berry as a principal who participates, supports, and is committed to student activities. And here's what I wrote for his nomination. Mike Berry makes a point of learning as many students' names as possible and greets them when he sees them in the hall. He is constantly asking students how they are doing or commenting on something they have accomplished. He also works hard to attend all of the sporting events and activities that he can, literally jumping from watching the wrestlers pin their opponents at matches to cheering on the speech team at a competition, and even timing for the NLCC Scholastic Bowl tournament himself. All in the same day. This year, we have had many teams find successes, and Mike has made sure that we found a way to celebrate all of them. The staff and students know he genuinely cares about them, and he goes out of his way to ensure that anything our students need, they get. The past few years have been difficult, but through it all, Mr. Berry has found a way to restore the roar for Round Lake Panthers. So it's my honor to recognize Mike Berry as a distinguished principal.
That's a tough one to follow. Good evening. I'm Jessica Crone, Science and CTE Coordinator for the district. Tonight, I have the distinct honor of introducing 5 groups of student projects from our Capstone Project Lead the Way class. These projects are the culmination of all of the design and engineering skills that students have learned throughout their entire engineering careers, many of whom started in elementary school. This is the first year we've been able to show physical products because of the pandemic, and we are so excited for students to be able to do that tonight. We are so incredibly proud of these students, and so without further ado, I give you our first group, Achieving Alkaline.
Hi everyone. Our group name is Achieving Alkaline. It's the cutest name ever for purifying water, right? I'm Katya. I'm Eric Evanson. We chose the Baxter Challenge project for our project. With a goal to purify water in the comfort of one's home to make it easier for dialysis patients to do their treatments at home. They have to carry, they get delivered boxes around 40 pounds of this dialysis solution. So our group took on the challenge of creating a device where they can purify and do the water changes at home. Thank you.
Our next group is Retro DEA.
Hello. So, hi, my name is Dad.
I'm Emiliano.
I'm Andres.
So, our team name is Retro DEA, and we decided to do on a modified Roomba so that you can control it. And
Basically, we realized that during the pandemic, a lot of times when you're staying home, your room or whatever gets really dirty, and we wanted it to, we wanted a way to vacuum and clean and mop maybe, and have a little bit of fun while doing it because it's remote controlled.
anything else? That's it. Thank you.
Next up, we have motorized assisted wagon.
Hi, my name is Aiden. I was part of the group that made the motorized assisted wagon. Our goal was to create a wagon with motors in it so it could help the person push it. It was to be used for pushing ice around the school or pushing salt around the school for ice and soil, and we accomplished our goal.
Next, we have Among Us.
Hello, my name's Saul.
I'm Logan.
And I'm Jarrett. Alright, and our team name is Among Us, and we chose that way before we knew we were going to present to the board. But our team, basically, what was it? The flight trip. Bugs are a big problem, like, around the world, but at least here in the U.S., they're more like of a nuisance. I can't say that word, but a problem. You know, they're annoying. They're annoying. They're annoying, and you know, they get annoying. Like it gets hot out, and then inside the house, like you're doing something, and they're just there. They're just in your face. And so what we wanted to do was just build a fly trap that, you know, you could easily replace the liquid inside, and like, you know, just get all the bugs. That's pretty much it.
And finally, we have Slope.
Hello, my name is Jaden.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Raul.
And our team name was Slope. So the problem we wanted to try to fix is, I mean, it's Round Lake, we're in Illinois. The weather is very unpredictable, especially before and after winter. So a lot of people like to ride skateboards around here. And we've got Harts Hill right pretty much next door. We want to make it so we can, in like less than 15 seconds, change a skateboard into a snowboard. So we wanted to take the trucks off, the wheels off, and then put some bindings on in like less than 15, 30 seconds, and then just go straight from the roads to going down the hills. And we would have probably had it done by now, but our purchase orders were just a little bit late, but we're on track to getting it done before we graduate.
My goodness, do we clear a room, huh?
Yeah, right? Whew, really rocking and rolling. This is a great start. Maybe they're going to take informed action, which leads us into our presentation today. My name is David Bell. I am the Social Studies Coordinator for the district. This is my colleague, Jess Crone, who is the Science and CD Coordinator. And we are here to give you an update about our programs and our respective disciplines and what we've been working on and what we're going to be working on moving forward. So why are we doing this together? Well, science and social studies don't commonly go together. You don't think of those in the same vein, but really we both have the same kind of goal, which is at its core, science and social studies is meant to have students get the tools they need to learn how to interact with the world around them and to influence the world around them.
So science instruction centers on taking students' natural curiosity and leveraging that to provide authentic and meaningful tasks for students that give them the knowledge and skills that they're going to need to face future problems.
And social studies instruction is really built around a driving mantra of ensuring that students improve their civic efficacy through inquiry-driven instruction and learning. We define that civic efficacy by being responsible citizens, being able to take informed action and make decisions. The inquiry-driven instruction part is asking questions, creating questions, using disciplinary tools and concepts, and communicating conclusions about those actions that they're taking.
So those are lofty ambitions. What does that look like in practice? So we have some key historical pieces to this. The first thing is the common systems that we have. So K-12, we really leverage the fact that we are a mastery learning district with standards-based grading. That's something that's very familiar and common to our elementary school teachers. Additionally, math and ELA curriculum work had happened before Dave and I began in elementary, and so we had a group of teachers that were really clear on kind of the cognitive demand that comes along with developing curriculum. In science, we also had really great alignment, 6-12 with our curriculum, and all of our assessments were based on something interesting that was happening in students' lives.
And social studies is a similar path of science in that we have a big, in this case, an essential question instead of a phenomena that students are expected to answer using evidence and reasoning, and then make that relevant by connecting it to something they can do to take action on something either local, regional, or global. We also have already started that work in the 6-12 realm by having students and teachers focusing on that component of inquiry-driven instruction as well. So what are we doing right now, basically, is what this slide talks about, which is a vertically aligned curriculum. And the vertically aligned curriculum idea is to have a series of skills that build across the grade levels and progress forward all the way through from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And the idea is that it builds in complexity over time. Middle school and high school have already participated in the process of building their vertically aligned curriculum pieces that connect to each other. And so the next natural step was to have that same thing happen in elementary school from kindergarten through 5, which is what our teachers have been really working on in depth this year.
So a quick timeline. You can see how bumpy the road was. The first 3 really talk about how the pandemic threw us for a loop, right? The emphasis here is on the idea that our teachers really persevered through that. It was not an easy thing to be developing curriculum with somebody who was sitting across town or in some cases in another town. But they persevered and just did an amazing job and something that we're really super proud of in both our departments.
So August of this year, we finally rolled out the new curriculum in both science and social studies. And throughout the school year, those same teachers who are comprised of teachers from each of those grade levels have been working on the school improvement days on their own time to put together and continue to revise and create this curriculum so students would have the best opportunity at exploring these ideas as possible. Our next step in the curriculum process is this summer, which is a curriculum review process based on teacher feedback. Those same vertical alignment teachers will be working over the summer to make more changes and adjustments to make it as good as possible.
So this quote is just a friendly reminder that science and technology is all around us, from the engineered wood tables that we're sitting at to the microphone that's allowing me to project my voice. And it's our job to prepare for our students for what's next. So what does that look like in science? You can see one of our standards in kindergarten through 12th grade is planning and carrying out investigations. And you can see just from the text length, what we are expecting students to do gets more complex with that from a kindergartner up to somebody who is taking AP Physics. And so, speaking of high schoolers, one of our capstone projects in biology is tasking students with figuring out how to grow plants in non-traditional ways. So they actually are tasked with figuring out how to grow a significant amount of food in a very small amount of space using hydroponics. And they spend pretty much the entire year trying to figure that out. On those two pictures there, you can see students are setting up their first round. And then in the second picture here, we have students in kind of the middle place. So that is some romaine lettuce that they are growing in dog food, which provides some of the nutrients. And then they take that out and replant it, and then they actually get to take that home and share it with their families. Which, of course, we wash it before they do that. So then how does that connect to what they're doing in middle school? We take a trip to 6th grade where a large jar that has been sealed for a very long time is placed in front of them with a plant that's alive. How is that staying alive? And they're tasked with trying to figure out how is that plant getting the information or getting the energy from their environment in order to stay that way. So you'll notice at the top, that is a student's model at the beginning of the unit where they're just focused on the pieces, where by the bottom model, when they are doing that, they are really focused on the processes of how that plant is getting getting the energy from its environment. This is another example of another student. You can see it's focused a lot on the things that they can see, but by the end of the unit, they're able to show all of the processes that are happening. It's also a writing piece that one of our 6th graders wrote that's next to that explains their model that sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I pull that out and just like, oh, that's a good explanation from our students. And then finally, we move to our Littlest Scientists. This is a group of 1st and 2nd grade mixed grade class, and they are looking at a bunch of different kinds of plants that live in lots of different environments. So things like oak trees and cacti and ferns, and they're tasked with figuring out all those plants have the same parts, but they look different. And why do they look different? So they are tasked with answering that question and figuring out how all of those pieces are helping those plants survive. And then this, again, is the students doing the same thing. So you can see that all of these experiences are really hands-on and they're exciting for students. And they provide a tactile experience for students to attach their new knowledge to. Our students are engaged in things like this from the time that they enter us in preschool or in kindergarten, and then all the way up to our AP Physics kids who are taking Nerf guns out and studying projectile motion while trying to hit their teacher in the backfield. If you've ever been around, you've probably seen that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and he's going to talk about what that looks like.
Hello, everyone. I get that for you. Sorry. So, as I mentioned earlier, our kind of primary driving ultimate goal for social studies is to make it relevant for students and connect something that they can take with them when they leave to make influence in the world around them, wherever they may go. But one of the greatest side benefits of social studies, especially in elementary school, is the added benefit for reading, which from the National Council of Social Science Social Education Journal quote I have up here talks about just additional 30 minutes improves reading, especially for students coming from less affluent homes and for students whose home language is not English. And so that's obviously very strong for a community. That's an important piece that we want to continue to kind of push, which is, again, a great added benefit of having that standard kind of curriculum of elementary school in the social studies. So what does that result look like for students in social studies? What is that experience? Similar to Ms. Crone's standard up here that she had, we similarly have something which is actually called a dimension of inquiry, which is the culminating dimension of taking informed action and communicating conclusions. And you can see from the slide, it also progresses in complexity over time, over the course of their elementary to middle to high school years. So what does that look like in high school? So the end kind of result is something, for an example, that we have called the Community Action Congress. If you've been to this Congress, if you've seen this Congress, it is an amazing event. It takes place at the Civic Center. This is my first year here, and it was overwhelmed with so many cool things that were going on. We had our students leading discussions at tables with community members. We had our students leading the whole room in conversation around the agenda. And then we had students going into breakout sessions with each of the community members that were there to ask questions, to figure out how they can be more involved, all wrapped around the big question of how do we build a stronger community. A couple quick pictures you have up there right now are some students at the top are taking the whole room through what the day's plan is going to be, and those are from our senior high school students in various social studies courses. And in the bottom, you can see students leading these other community members in these icebreakers. The Exchange Club was there. The Round Lake Round Lake Beach Police Chief was there. The Lake Forest County Forest Reserve was there. variety of different groups, try and help students figure out how they can be an influencer in their community. Moving to the middle school, students in 7th, 8th, and 6th grade do a civic action project. In this project, they're expected to generate questions based on a topic, research the question, and create some sort of awareness campaign or some sort of action-taking campaign to let others know about the issue. The particular example I use here is from 2 students who built a website around global warming, talking about places they could donate, talking about different ways they can help, talking about what it is and isn't. And what's really cool about this project is those 2 kids that did that one, in the middle of the project, one of the students moved away to Missouri, and they finished it anyway, and they posted it anyway and put it up there because they were that dedicated to the idea. So it's a testament to our teachers instilling that kind of energy and motivation to the project and to those students. On the next slide, you'll see kind of the genesis of the project, which is the core of inquiry, which is asking questions. It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but those are questions generated by the kids on a variety of topics that they came up with as well. And I got to watch this in the classroom this year for this year's round of inquiry questions. It was really energizing, kind of like seeing the project lead the way kind of projects that come out. That kind of stuff is what keeps you going. And this was really cool to see the teachers leading the students through that type of thing. Finally, our littlest social scientists. So this is a 3rd grade classroom, and the big question that they were wrestling with was, what does it mean to be a citizen? And so this is kind of a play-based learning assignment task, I guess, and the project was that they were simulating a city council meeting, and so you can see the members of the meeting on both sides. There was a leader of the meeting who was doing roll call, who was doing an agenda, who was keeping time. It was great. I have a video of it, which was fantastic to see. So these are kind of stills from there, but they were supposed to represent different groups and different offices you'd normally see at one of those, and then they would explain a problem, and they'd want the board to kind of decide what to vote on or not vote on. Very much living that life right now, standing up here. At the bottom there, you can kind of see even some of the students got really into it, got some of the crossing guard uniforms. That was the Public Works Department on the bottom that they were representing. They tried to show us how to fix a pipe, which was 2 pieces of paper. It's low tech stuff. It's not quite as high up as what we just saw, but they were getting there. They were moving in that direction. So that's that particular one. And then the next slide, just another couple examples of students kind of doing a similar type of project. But again, all around, what is government? How does it work? How can I be a good citizen? What are some of those departments that I can really work with, or that I can at least learn about, even in a 3rd grade level like this?
So the question, what next? For science, we're looking at expanding our partnerships. We have a great relationship with Skype a Scientist, where last week we actually had a scientist that lives in Australia approach or present to a bunch of our teachers about sea turtles and sea turtle lifestyle. We had another scientist that was living in Thailand studying how birds communicate. And all of those are units that our students are learning about right now. And so those teachers are able to Skype that person in through a video call, and they're actually able to take the students through their work all over the world, which is super exciting. We also have the Lake County Forest Preserve that's been a great partner to us that is bringing science into the classroom, but we're really excited and hopeful that we'll be able to go out starting next school year so that students can see all the science that is happening in their community as well. And then the thing that I'm probably most excited about right now is we're bringing back the native plant sale at the high school through our instructional biology course. The students have grown all of the plants that we're about to sell from seeds, and they have cleaned out the greenhouse and made it functional again. And at the end of the month, they will be selling all their plants that they have been working on growing all year. So, yes.
Social Studies is also expanding partnerships through with their local organizations through a new Honors Community Civics course starting next year, where students in the course will actually be going out and interacting with those community members and finding ways to make a difference locally in a variety of ways. Whatever that is, we'll find out, as it's a new course and it's very exciting. The middle school is, we're hoping to expand the Taking Informed Action, that civic action project that you saw an example of earlier. The goal is to kind of give them a bigger audience so that others can see what some of those different actions are that you can take, and some of the awareness campaigns that you could use, you can do yourself or lead yourself. So that's really exciting stuff that we're going to see how that kind of rolls out starting next year. And then both science and social studies for elementary school are kind of digging back into the curriculum that they just rolled out. There's always a lot of changes after the first year. Any new thing, the first new next always the biggest kind of adjustment. So that's where a lot of the work will be for those elementary school teachers. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
So we're doing a community engagement presentation talking about where I was at a NSPA and talking about cutting edge education direction of how'd you put it so succinctly? How do we prepare, oh my goodness. Our responsibility to provide experiences that give students the ability to make sense of and interact with the world around them as being the base and the focus. So I'm going to be doing that. And can you guys stay? Because you just illustrated everything 100% of congratulations. You sound like you are really excited about the work you're doing.
We have great jobs. Yeah.
And you said what I was going to say, and you've mentioned that before, I think in the last couple board meetings. I think we all know the SAT is important. We all know that the College Board or AP scores in the IR, that's all important. But I think what I'm impressed with, and I think we've been seeing this throughout the course of the year, is making sure that our kids have rich experiences focused on inquiry, discovery, touching, engagement. And so it's both of your, and this happened with the ELA and math presentation, your enthusiasm like oozes like out of you for it. And so I also want to, thank Dr. Center and on the board. I don't know if you noticed, but all of that furniture you purchased, the flexible furniture, is allowing for some of this stuff to happen. The furniture we can move it. I mean, we bought it for the purpose of keeping us apart, and now we're able to be together, and it's just amazing. So I'm just very excited. Plus, I'm a social studies minor, and this is like, I was never taught social studies this way.
Oh, I have a question. Sorry. On the Honors Community Civics course, it's expanded partnerships with local organizations. What local organizations are we partnering with?
So some of those organizations are the ones that were at the Civic Action Congress. We were starting there. Again, I think someone from Avon Township was there, one of the members, representatives from there. Again, the Forest Preserve, which has been, I know, a partner for a long time with Round Lake. At least that's what I've heard. Again, first year, so I'm learning all that. The Exchange Club, and then Doug Barnshaw is actually the department chair and is kind of the initiator of the course, is reaching out as that was part of the bridging, but he's also reaching out to other community organizations and trying to get some people on board leading into the summer so we can start building that course over the summer and really figuring out like which partnerships are we going to pursue and which ones can we actually rely on, because there's several that are all in, like some of the ones I mentioned, and some others that are still trying to reach out to try to get a hold of to get involved. But we're hoping we can get as many as we can. It's a smaller kind of course to begin so that we can kind of roll it out slow and see how it works. So we're not getting too over the top with a lot of them, but we're trying to get the ones that are pretty well known around here first, and then seeing if anyone else is able to kind of jump on board. And anything that gets the kids working in their community to know that they have power and agency to make change is a community I'm willing to work with.
No, I think that's great. So will you come back and let us know how this goes? Because I think we would all be interested to hear how that course goes.
Yeah, absolutely. When we find out a little more as we start going forward, I'll be happy to kind of come back and update on how that course has been rolling out and some of the stuff they've been working on as well. I might even bring Doug back. He doesn't know that yet, but I bring him back to talk about that course as well. So I look forward to it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good segue there.
Wow.
We don't dance, sing, and we have no robotics. But
We love you. We love you both.
We can tell you about summer school, and we want to tell you a little bit about where we've been, just basically pre-pandemic, what we did, and then what we're going to do this summer. So at elementary, well, actually, I digress. I want to talk a little bit about our partnership with United Way. They have partnered with us for like the last 7 years for what we call a kindergarten countdown camp. We consider it part of our summer school programming, but what they do is they reach out to our newly enrolled kindergartners who have no preschool experience, and they run this kindergarten countdown camp with readiness skills. Their pre and post assessments have fabulous results, and it's really helped us over the years with our incoming kindergartners. They ran this program before the pandemic. We run 4 classrooms, 3 general ed and 1 dual language classroom. and about 15 students in each. So we're reaching about 60 students. And we fill that almost every summer. Now, during the pandemic, they're like, well, we want to do more. They always want to do more, which is fabulous. They provided family activity calendars, which at least gave families readiness activities to do at home, which was wonderful. And now this summer, we're going back to our in-person kindergarten countdown camp. They basically provide all the materials, and they actually pay our teachers hourly wage. So it's a wonderful partnership that I wanted you to know about. So that's what we do with incoming kinder. The Early Childhood Center is providing what are they doing? Summer learning bags for every single student. They did it last summer, and they're going to do it again this summer. So the families will have activities to do all summer long to support the students that are coming back to the EEC next year, and then even some that may be transitioning into kindergarten, because those students wouldn't qualify for the United Way program. So they have something to keep them, their fingers in academics, but with really the idea is to focus on family. Now I'll get into K through 5. Previously, before the pandemic, we had a summer enrichment camp, which kids could sign up for 2 classes. We did everything from quilting to drama. It was truly enrichment, providing them with activities that maybe they'd never been exposed to before. Then the pandemic happened, and clearly we couldn't do that. So what we did is we made our online reading and math programs that are individualized available to students both summers. And then we had an incentive. I think if they went on for X number of minutes a week, they got a coupon to Dairy Queen, which is when you wondered why I spent $3,000 at Dairy Queen on my P card. That was why. I wasn't having a party. But we had that many kids participate. We did that again last summer. It wasn't as popular, but we did offer a hybrid summer school where the kids were in for 2 days, out for 2 days with reading and math support. This summer, yay, in person, 4 days a week. We are offering literacy and math support to our students. We try to integrate science and social studies into that. It's a 3-hour program for the month of June. And then we invite our LL students as well, so we always run a dual language component. We run the summer school at Ellis, and then any students that qualify for extended school year in their IEP are also in the school at this time. But the focus this year is really on supporting literacy and math development. And our enrollment is doing pretty good. It just kicked off about a week ago, and we've got close to 90 people registered. So I'd say we're on our way. And Lisa will tell you about secondary.
All right, I'm filling in for Kurt, but I'm pretty well versed, I would say, in secondary summer school. So at the middle school level in the past, we focused on reading and math. It was definitely more of a remediation piece, targeting students that had failed 2 or more of their core classes. But again, only reading and math. Pandemic hit, and again, we did some pieces where we had like online programs, but we weren't running any courses through that summer of the pandemic. Now we're excited, and we did start last year as well in the effort to bring all 4 of the core classes into middle school summer school, which we will be doing this year. The one thing is our summer school program will be run all at the high school for our middle school students as well. There is specific programming at middle school for our newcomer students in the language program in regards to teaching English and supporting them in math. And then of course, same as Beth said, with our extended school year students, if it is in their IEP, there will definitely be programming for those students as well. When we speak to the high school pre-pandemic did definitely a lot of credit recovery. They also did have that like honors preparation course, and also had the newcomer programming to support our new to the country language learners and ESY. Pandemic, there was still a little online credit recovery available for students because that could be easily done virtually, because that was like the past practice, was a lot of credit recovery online coursework. But now coming out of the pandemic, we're continuing again more credit recovery for students, going back to bringing kids in that are newcomers to do English and math support, and also doing the extended school year as well as the honors program. And there is also a band program as well. So I think that covers everything secondary related.
I'm just going to ask a quick question on the band. I noted it's for the incoming 6th grade band. Is that something that we're looking at being able to step forward And as the years go on, that might extend in order to be able to give more of a year-round component.
Yeah, we're still trying to fill in the holes from not having been able to play for a year from the pandemic. So, in talking with the other directors, they thought having it for our current 5th and 6th graders right now would help fill in those holes and fill in those gaps. We were talking about doing it also for the incoming 5th graders for beginning band, but there was a big gap at the beginning of the year between the 5th graders who were part of it over the summer and who were not. So we're like, we wanted to focus on, we're kind of the biggest bang for our buck kind of a thing. But yeah, eventually we'd like to actually expand it to more kids, more programs, looking at possibly doing choir also. We have some other cool things in the works I'm working with Dr. Center on also to expand the arts in those areas, which you'll hear about in June.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you very much. All right, next up in front of us is the FOIA report. Anybody have any questions in regards to the info that's in that? Hearing none, we will move on then to contracts under 1,000. Does look like we had one for a contract of 0, so is it really a contract? But no, I'm joking. Any questions from the board in regards to the contracts under 1,000? Hearing none, now we will move on to opportunities for public comment. As always, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person, staying while they're in person, and or submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that all speakers are limited to 3 minutes in time. A link to the electronic public comment forms is attached in the documentation, and electronic public comments will be accepted up until the time the board reaches public comment section of the meeting agenda, aka now. Question is, we have no electronic public comment. Do we have any public? Hi, one public, yay. Sure, come on up.
Okay, so as a teacher at Pleviac, I wanted to comment on the sea turtles. Last week that we were able to do it for our PD, so many teachers have said that it was the most informative and engaging PD that they've ever had. And they really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you for that. All right, next up is the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Board President and Board of Education. Plans are in place to hold the first round of interviews for the Round Lake High School principal on May 10th and 11th. Candidates will meet with 4 separate committees, which include administration, staff, parents, and students. I'm feeling very good about the candidate pool. I know the update says first round. I'm hoping it's the first and last round. And I want to thank the team, the HR department for talking this through, but we feel very good about the process we've set up to get feedback from various constituents. The Round Lake Area Exchange Club will host a trivia fundraiser on May 13th at the Round Lake Beach Cultural and Civic Center. Attendees are invited to register with 6 to 10 team members per table. Table registration will cost $100. Anyone interested in participating may do so at the following link. And I think we did this before, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And we had teams there, Round Lake. A good thing we weren't very competitive. But that concludes the superintendent's report. That was a fun evening.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. All right, next up are committee reports, and I believe we had an exciting community engagement committee meeting today, so update away.
So it was actually one of the best, I think, community engagement meetings we've had in just a long time. So Scott, we had basically had a lot of time for Scott to kind of review over his experience at the national conference that he went to. And I'm going to just sum up and then I'm going to hand it over to him so he can kind of give his thoughts on that. But basically we talked about kind of being on the cutting edge of educating children with skills-based knowledge. So teaching them to, for example, critical thinking, communication, problem solving, advocating for yourself, etc., things like that. And then we had special guests with us. So we had actually a former student, I believe, and that right, she was. Oh, I'm sorry, she did go to Booking. Excuse me. And then we had Dr. Centers with us, but it was just such an engaging, awesome community engagement meeting. Just kind of discussing the way that we approach teaching children kind of skills and sort of are a different way to approach than we did when we were kids. So I'm going to actually kind of let him take it over because he articulated it much better than I. But it was a good meeting, and I'm going to have you guys join in as well.
So the last couple meetings have brought up the NSPA and how much that impacted a couple of the sessions I've been at. And part of it, there were two pieces of it. One was I think I'm the oldest one on the board. And when I went to school, yep, I think so. When I went to school, it was a competition, right? Because you had to basically, you had to do better than you. I had to do better than you. I was about GPA. It was about class rank. It was about failing later than you do. All those things. It was more competitive. And it was about, do you have what it takes to learn at this school? And so grades made sense because that's the score. But when I came here, it had this this mastery learning, standard-based grading thing that made no sense to me as a parent. And I'm like, well, what about, I had a whole bunch of what abouts. And so when I first got here, I ended up on the board, I ended up meeting with Dr. Center, and she moved me, but I still didn't completely understand. And so at the conference, there were a couple key lines and a couple key tracks and topics and things about what's happening, cutting edge, where is education going, and yada, yada, yada. And holy smokes, when we have, at the presentation, the social studies science presentation, one of the comments I heard is mastery learning, standard-based grading, that's like commonplace for our I think our elementary school is commonplace for our elementary school. That's like old hat. That's not old hat for everybody. It's really, really cool. So that was one piece. It's the direction that we're going is to build the skills for our students to succeed in the future. And that includes the knowledge, but it also includes in some ways I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but about critical thinking, creative problem solving, communication, collaboration, civic engagement, and self-direction. And I started with that and then said, Dr. Center, what do you think? And then she took it away for the rest of the meeting and sharing how each of those skills are integrated in the work that you all are doing. And then part of the conversation turned to how do we as a district, Heather brought up, how do we as a district share why communication matters and how are we using communication in science and math, and why does it matter, and why does it matter that we're focusing on that instead of focusing on the SAT, as the SAT is an outcome, not necessarily an intent on an input. So that was pretty much the base of everything that we had talked about. And at the end, and actually all that conversation, actually our guest was so excited for what's happening in this school. So kudos. All right, that's mostly what it was about. It was a lot of kudos. And then I think the next step is how do we communicate to the community? How do we communicate to the teachers, to the parents, that old guys like me, on why are we doing it differently and why it's better, and why it's actually what, as a parent, it's what I want. I don't, in the big scheme of things, I really don't care if my kid does well on the ACT, but I really care if they're good at critical thinking and creative problem solving and communication and collaboration and civic engagement and self-direction. And because there's nothing wrong with our kids, they just need to learn in a different way. And that was another big point, so.
Yeah, that one was one that kind of hit me really hard too, because we were discussing how it sort of levels the playing field. So if a child learns a little slower or is considered behind, you know, it doesn't matter as long as they get to that. And the way that we're approaching it, they do. So it was just a very touching, like warm and fuzzy community engagement meeting. I was very excited about it. And actually, it's nice to be part of a school district that recognizes that, because that's our future. So do you want to add anything?
I think as far as the communication part of it, we discussed at the committee meeting, we've got a nice start on that with Susan and Liz and team, and the work that they've done with creating the parent resource videos for the library this year. And we have some plans to build onto that next year, really honing in inside the classroom and showing those examples of those specific areas that Scott mentioned and how they relate to the overarching philosophies that we hear about so often in the district.
And that concludes the update.
Thank you very much. All right, next up we are to the action phase.
All right. I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the April 18th, 2022 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Abstain.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report in the amount of $550,548.22 and the May 2nd, 2022 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes. And motion carries.
On to old business. I need a motion to approve the one-year extension of the Organic Life contract for the 2022-2023 school year and authorize the superintendent and/or his designee to execute all required documents.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Yep. Just, as I say, there's no questions, but I just wanted to add that this did go through Finance Committee. This was reviewed. And as we mentioned, there are possibly some changes that come forth with how we vet our food service vendors, but that has not been confirmed yet. But when that does happen, we will inform the board.
And that vetting would be on the next contract for next year, correct?
Yes, if those changes are made.
Thank you. Roll call.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
And motion carries.
New business.
Okay, I'll take it from here. So it's hard to believe, but in January of 2019, I oversaw a third-party AV company fix 27 Learn Labs. That was January 2019. At that time, with the lingering AV issues, at that time, we agreed that the next phase would be the science rooms. Due to other priorities and a pandemic, that funding was reallocated. Craig Albers, who's sitting to my left, has never lost sight of this, and every year asks, is this the year we're going to fix these rooms? The team has worked with our stakeholders in TNL to figure out what that fix now looks like. They have a good design. They've worked with 3 different companies to come up with proposals. We reviewed the proposals internally, and Craig is recommending we move forward with Midwest Computers for a total amount of $101,153.50 to fix the actual issues. And then I also worked with the company to look at, and I wholeheartedly believe we need an extended warranty given where we've been. So it's a 3-year warranty at $13,121. Just to give you perspective, industry standard for extended warranties are somewhere on the 15 to 20%, and that's usually a good price point. This is below that. So I'm here asking for your approval to move forward with Midwest Computers for us to resolve these lingering issues once and for all in these last instructional spaces.
So moved.
Second.
No, there's no motion.
And then I'm going to ask for clarification. This has already gone all the way through finance, correct?
Yes, I do have a question, Dan, because we talked about the extended warranty, but on the new business, the total contract says 114. That's not including that.
It is. It's the 2 amounts combined, and I should have clarified. The 101,000 is coming out of ESSER. The 13 is coming out of tech.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, yeah. All right, now I'll read the motion. All right, I need a motion to approve to authorize the superintendent to enter into the attached contract with Midwest Computers and to authorize the superintendent or his designee to execute any and all documents related to the contract with Midwest Computers in the dollar amount of $114,274.50.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Larson, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
And motion carries.
All right, I need a motion to approve to authorize the superintendent or the superintendent's designee to execute any and all documents related to the sale of obsolete technology with Second Life Mac.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any additional questions? Roll
So-
call. Go.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, this went through finance as well. And again, these are those iPads that have sustained their life. And of course, there has been the communication, I hope everybody has seen regarding. This is where we also establish the price for those parents who want to purchase those iPads for their students.
Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the Board of Education travel expenses reimbursement related to NSPA conference for April 2022 in the amount of $1,418.68.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Any questions? Any clarifications? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the administrator and confidential employee salaries and contract for the 2022-2023 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any questions or clarifications? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco.
Yes. And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the 3-year contract with Dude Solutions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. De Vera. Any questions or clarifications?
Again, just to reiterate, this did go through Finance Committee. And again, this is used throughout our district for staff and to, again, request rooms and room setup with our custodial staff. And even the 3-year contract will save us some substantial money in doing the multi-year.
Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Okay, dude.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
And motion carries. All right, next up is we're at the discussion to add school resource officer SRO at Round Lake Middle School.
Yeah, so I'm just going to take a couple minutes to give a high-level overview. Certainly want the board to have a discussion about this. Corey is available. Corey's certainly been a extremely valuable resource in terms of connecting with the local police departments. So the genesis of this is really a community need. We've got multiple things happening, a confluence of different events over the last 2 or 3 years that kind of created this discussion. The first time I was approached about the possibility of a school resource officer around Lake Middle School was, I believe, before the pandemic, and it was with the village administration. And at that time, it wasn't a lengthy discussion, it was not a repeated discussion, and I frankly didn't think a lot about it at the time, and I didn't feel like, based upon the conversation, that there was an immediate need. And I really wasn't asked about it again until this year. By and large, for a couple of primary reasons. Number one, we went out in March of 2020. Our kids were out a majority of the year in 2021. And then coming out of the pandemic, I think you've seen as a board, we've had an uptick in, I think everybody nationally, mental health needs and concerns. In our geographic area, we have at least 4 police departments. They're all of different sizes. Our schools are in different villages. And essentially, Round Lake Middle School is in Round Lake Heights, which has a smaller police force. They've been a very good partner for us. We value our police departments. But that, coupled with legislation that was passed in 2019 by the state of Illinois, which I believe dealt with this School Safety Drill Act, required a significant increase in terms of the resource and manpower required to deal with threat assessments. Threat assessments, you can read the memo, but there's a variety of levels of that. That legislation then prompted all school districts in Illinois to put together threat assessment teams that needed to follow specific protocols in managing threat assessments. Pleased to say, we have a process, we have a procedure, it's outlined, it's in our safety handbook. And so the issue that we're running into is every time we have a threat assessment, as part of the legislation, we do need to engage our local law enforcement. Well, if you think about low-level threat assessments, which could include bullying, self-harm, other things that I've listed on here, that could take 2 to 3 hours. In the village of Round Lake Heights, they only have 1 officer on patrol at any one time. So if you think about even multiple minor threat assessments, low level, in a single day, or even larger threat assessments that could take 6 hours, there's an issue with ensuring that the community is being supported with law enforcement. So the genesis of this is really a community need from which I believe the school can also benefit. And then I would also share that, this part of the state, good or bad, we are just dense. When you go down to southern Illinois, you have school districts that are very spaced out. I know you drive to Illinois State quite a bit, so do I. I mean, there's a lot of road and a lot of cornfields, but school districts down there, as per the guidance, can participate in what's called the regional threat assessment teams. Now, I will tell you the promptness, the timeliness of regional threat assessments teams is going to be based off of available resources. You could deal with, and Corey can speak to this, the county sheriff. You could deal with hospital, social work services and those types of things. But there is no doubt the ability to respond in a timely manner is probably better here than it is in some more rural locations. So what I've done for you is just provided some high level information. Corey can talk about the threat assessment concept, which could include interviewing multiple students, doing multiple home visits, following up with on incidents multiple times in the day. It requires follow-up paperwork, but we want to make sure that our kids are safe and that we're following appropriate protocol. Part of the threat assessment team also are school staff members, but there are certain things that they're limited to. We aren't going to have necessarily our social workers going to do home visits inside and do interviews. So when the mayor came to me with this, he talked me through it. I had multiple conversations with Corey. I then also attempted to meet with the Round Lake Police Department because in my infinite wisdom, I thought perhaps a job sharing arrangement could work for both middle schools, but due to factors that Corey can talk about specifically, probably not tenable. And so I'm bringing this to you because I think there is a need, a justifiable need. We do have specific expectations for what a school resource officer does. I also think that, it's something to think about, but at this point in time, should you consider this, it would not be for both middle schools because the Round Lake Police Department has the manpower, the number of of the police force to be able to respond to those threat assessments without having a dedicated officer. They're just larger, and I put the numbers of the full-time officers and part-time positions in the memo for your consideration. So I just wanted you to talk about it. I'm not asking for approval. I think there's a need. Should you support the idea, we would bring back an intergovernmental agreement for your consideration. We would maybe try it for a year. I would bring back regular updates to you as a board so that we could monitor this to see whether or not it's something we wanted to continue. So Corey, did I miss anything?
No, not too much. I just think, with adding the SRO to Round Lake Middle School, it's not necessarily that there's any crime surge that's going on in the school. It is specifically to the behavioral end of it with the threat assessments, whether it's a low, moderate, or high risk. They have to respond. So it can be from anything from a student just writing something on paper, making a statement that they're bringing in a gun to school or they want to kill someone. Those incidents have to be vetted, and the police departments have to make parental notification. They have to talk to the students. They have to talk to the teachers. They have to talk to other students involved. So yes, it can be 2 to 3 hours, but it can go and climb as high as 5 to 6 hours and rotate into the next day for those departments. And with Round Lake Heights, they have Monday through Friday, they have one officer on the street. So if they get something, I'll call it 9 a.m. at Round Lake Middle School, that officer is off that street for that community basically all day. So if we can partner with them to have an SRO in that school, I think it'll benefit our school to be safer and also lend a hand to that community. and make it a safer community, because we're not pulling that resource just for Round Lake Middle School, and we're having another resource out there for that community to make that community safe and have a safe partner with our school as well. I just think this would be something that would be ideal and help out our school greatly with this. And I'll take any questions that you'd have at this time.
So I have a question. I actually totally agree that it's necessary, just from what you've conveyed, but I am a little concerned about optics. I do understand why you're saying Round Lake High, like middle specifically, but I do wonder, how are we gonna communicate that to the community so that it doesn't look like Round Lake Middle is the bad school?
So that would come centrally, that would come from me. I would partner with Heather, and that would come multiple times because one wouldn't be good enough. The other thing, and I'm not asking for this now, but there is a remedy for that. I think it could be argued, given the threat assessment protocols, and I know this happens even here in this school, sometimes the SRO actually has to get more help here. So one of the things you could do down the road is you actually could get a second one that would be housed, it would be a second Round Lake SRO whose home base would be McGee, but then they could float over here if they needed more help. That, I'm not asking for that now, but I agree, and I actually called that out in the memo, the optics of it, we'd have to be repeated, clear, multiple times, so that our parents knew. And on the other end, you could have a situation where the McGee families may think that we're not as mindful of keeping their kids safe because they don't have an officer. So it would have to come multiple times, we have to be clear on what the reasons are, and really, this is about filling a need. Round Lake is able to fill the need without adding a position, and it's easy for us to sit here and talk about it, but the communication would come multiple times and would come centrally from me.
Understanding that Round Lake can fill that need, doing the job that I do, I've been in a building with and without an SRO over the years. I think we would be remiss in not putting one at McGee, just from the basis of the plethora of things that they do, other than what one might traditionally think is, oh, well, you have a resource officer, they're there to keep the trouble down. They go into classrooms, they help with community outreach, I think having had this pandemic and having had students home for so long, we have so many students who have kind of forgotten how to just be students, and they just haven't had the connection that they used to have. I think it would be good to just, the more people they see, the more adults in the community they see, the better relationships they have and the better relationships in the community. And so that they won't be scared of the police by the time they're in high school. They don't hear, oh, well, police are all bad. No, that's the dude we go to if we have a problem in the hall, or, they can fill a whole different kind of student services gap, that can help support them. I think that would be awesome if we could do that.
Very inclined to agree with that.
And then I'm going to throw in another question off of that as well. I know you talked about the alternate downstate. What kind of options would we have of looking at maybe having that one position that could float, but maybe it's through the sheriff's department, so that we can not necessarily have that jurisdictional issue?
So we can look into that, because doing that would actually address the Round Lake Middle School issue, but we just have to reach out to the sheriff. I'm guessing that Corey, do you want to comment on that? He's got this smile, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, the sheriff's department's not gonna jump over jurisdiction and take a municipality. It's just something they're just not gonna do.
So then how does the downstate situation work with that regional, or however that was?
Anything downstate where they have the sheriff's department, they probably do not have a police department within that town. So therefore they have to use the regional base, which is because they're unincorporated.
like where I'm at, we have our town, our city municipality is our SRO, but then if the situation happens out in county area for a student who goes to the school, they may have to work together. It's a whole dynamic.
I mean, I'm happy to reach out to the sheriff's office myself. It really doesn't matter to me whether it's a municipal need or if it's a more, but I mean, Corey has more experience than I do, but we certainly can, investigate that. The other thing is the reason I didn't come with the second one is we usually slow roll new ideas. We don't just jump in both feet. If the board's directing me to go explore the second one, I'm happy to do that. I just thought we would do it potentially first, get the feedback, get the input, and then go to the second one. We typically don't. Now, I also don't want to double talk because safety is important. We don't want it to be made to appear we're compromising safety either, but the need is filled at this time by the Round Lake Police Department at McGee.
Well, and yeah, again, when it comes to the second one per se, that's why I'm trying to look at it from an optic of finding one way to be able to spread it over both. So that maybe it's not the one at 49.77, maybe it's one at 60 whatever when it's.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Corey talk about that. We actually tried to do that with the two police departments and it's just not going to work. But why don't you talk about the reasons?
Yeah, so that was first discussion and they both said no to that. Neither village will assume responsibility if an officer doesn't respond how they're supposed to. Then basically, let's say they don't act on like a kid with a weapon or something like that, and they bring harm to other students, then that village has to take on that responsibility of that officer. And if it's an outside agency officer that's in a different jurisdiction, the village just does not want to take on that responsibility. That is not their employee.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that, and I'll also say the thing that gives me pause as well is the fact that we would be in a way, we would be hiring the only full-time officer that Round Lake Heights has. Because of from what I'm aware, they basically, that one full-time position is spread out over multiple part-time officers.
They have other full-time officers. They have a sergeant. I mean, besides their chief, they have their chief, their sergeant, and then one other officer that's full-time.
But they're not on patrol, correct?
The sergeant is on patrol.
But I mean,
he fills as an administrator.
There's one person though that's on patrol at any one time.
Yes, just one. The chief of police in that jurisdiction patrols just like any other officer. If
Yeah,
they
I'm
don't have the
painfully
man.
aware of that. I had one of my children had an incident, and the chief was the one who was the SRO for that. So, but again, that's what I'm still coming back to is, to me, I don't know that I'm comfortable with we're paying and basically hiring a full-time officer for an entire jurisdiction. It's one thing like with Round Lake where they've got the officers and we're paying them for the services, but we're not adding that one extra officer.
And maybe I didn't communicate it properly, but we're actually paying for the service we're getting. The officer is going to be in the middle school. It's not as if there's two officers on patrol now and one goes to the middle school. The officer will go through the SRO training. They're in our building. What it does do is it does free up another person to handle patrol duties. So it is a net something, but I think for us, one of the things I think timing is good is that you can look at the salary and benefits, it's part-time. So it's not a full-time position.
And just to add to that, so if Round Lake, if we did one at McGee, they would increase the amount of officers they have by one because they would add an officer for an SRO position.
Fair, but they're not doubling their force to do it.
True.
So the question I have with the SRO at Round Lake Middle, knowing the limited resources for Round Lake Heights, let's say that SRO is out for COVID or, sick day, whatever. How will they be able to back that up or backfill for those days that maybe that SRO would call in or is unable to attend?
They'll do it pretty much the same way Round Lake does it now, is they'll fill in off of their shift coverage, what they have available, or their police department coverage, and they'll put an officer in there. I brought that point up to them, and I did say that is a concern of mine because of their size of their PD, but they said they have the officers and they're at staff right now where if the SRO was out sick or takes vacation or something else comes up, and they said they can fill that role.
Okay, I'd be more concerned with them because it is such a smaller force. Where obviously with the village of Round Lake, who has 40, police officers versus the 5 at Round Lake Heights. But obviously, if this were to be approved by the board, we would put that in the IGA.
Yeah, I'd definitely put that in the IGA that they would have to fall in line with Round Lake where it's pretty much 99% of the time full. So.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions, clarifications?
Do you need, because I'm happy to do it, do you need more information? If you think of it, please let me know, but I would, my intent would be to bring something back for the board's consideration I'm not sure we can do it by the next board meeting. We've got to get an IGA done. We want Pam to look at it. We want the attorneys to review it. We also want to make sure that we follow up again with the administration of Round Lake Heights in terms of expectations, in terms of what the individual will be doing. To go back to what Ms. Larson said, we want this to be educational too, and for the SRO to build relationships with our kids in the schools. And there's a lot of things creatively that we could do that we have not been able to do in our middle school. So there's some value there. So.
All right, well, thank you for that. And next up, we are to the positive occurrences.
I know this will come as a shock, but I have one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we had our prom, as you guys probably know, and I was just, my daughter was involved, so I was a little bit more close to it this time than the last few years, but it was just a beautiful job. They did a great job. You guys did amazing. Like the flip books, the transporting them to and from by a bus, which is actually kind of an unusual way of doing it, but I think was a genius idea because it minimizes a lot of issues that I think could creep up just by nature of teenagers. But it was just really well done. I mean, it was very organized. I thought it was supervised very well. I mean, I was really, again, proud of our community. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'll just say that I got to watch my 14U soccer player play on the brand new field out at the high school, and it was great to see my future Panther out there.
What did he say about playing on the field?
He thought it was cool.
Yeah.
It's big, and I mean, it's the same size, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would definitely elaborate on that. AYSO 428 here in Round Lake was able to secure and rent the facilities actually the last two Sundays. So thank you to the administration and team and operations and everyone involved in that. We were able to host Wakanda two Sundays ago and Grays Lake yesterday. 4 games that were hosted at the stadium, and our players loved it. They were able to get on the turf. But I'll tell you, actually, it was the other teams that came in, Grays Lake and Wakanda, that couldn't stop talking about the facility. So great job all around.
Yeah, as I sat in the stands, I could hear the parents chattering about what a nice facility we had.
I was just going to add softball and baseball underway, and our baseball team last week had a big win against Grays Lake North. So it was a really good game.
Looking forward to a middle school rainy track meet tomorrow at the high school.
You never know, it could snow. Hey, everybody that was complaining about weather in March, I'll take the March weather over what we've got in April.
And then just to let you know, like Miss Klinger said, it was nice to have the kids have prom again this year. It's their first prom in a couple of years. I think our high school always does it well. We've done the buses for prom for at least a decade. So I think it is the safest way to get the kids here. But again, it was just nice to see the kids have prom and get dressed up and see all the pictures and the kids in the neighborhood just to be excited to go to prom. So I'm really happy that they were able to have prom this year.
Anything else? Next up, future agenda items. Anyone?
Okay, I normally don't have anything, but I have something tonight. I'm kind of piggybacking off of the community engagement. I was wondering, is it possible for us to find out, in an effort to help with kind of explaining to people and helping improve the whole community engagement piece, post-secondary outcomes, like a 5-year follow-up, or maybe 1 year, 5 year, whatever, because now we've had this in place for a while, especially with our high schoolers, and as we're seeing our younger kids coming through, where are they a year after, 5 years after? Are they doing what they wanted to do? Did they go to college? Did they go to the military? Did they just go right into the job? How did they feel ready, prepared, that sort of thing?
I got to think through that. But typically, so yes, the answer is yeah, we'll bring it back. In the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Senator, we used to get information from the clearinghouse, but the last 3 years have been out of whack. But we'll look at some things that we can find. I just don't want to process out loud here. But yeah, we can, I'm not sure exactly when we can do that, but the team can get together and figure out what we can pull together.
I could speak as one. I do have something for future agenda though. Appreciate the administration's getting the robe for the middle schoolers, but if we can have it on the agenda once we get past this, what the process is officially going to look like moving forward, whether it's the fee to the parents, how that fee structure is going to look like.
You got it.
Anything else? Hearing nothing else, then we will move to convene in closed session. So if I can get a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following. 1. Employment matters, 5 ILCS 120/2C1, self-evaluation, practices and procedures or professional ethics when meeting with a representative of a statewide association of which a public body is a member, 5 ILCS 120/2C16, and closed meeting minutes, 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
And motion carries, so we will now convene in closed session. To everyone online, thank you for attending and watching. We look forward to speaking with you here in a couple of weeks at our next meeting. For everybody in the room, thank you very much and have a great evening.